Good evening, Canada. Here we are live on set for CTC's brand new segment, where we take a look back at events from 1919 to 1929. This time was also known as the Roaring Twenties for its bootleggers, booze, flappers, and jazz. However, not all people were roaring during this time. But enough small talk, it's time to get into the news. We'll take you straight into our first story.
Today we recount one of the most important events of the Winnipeg General Strike, which took place from May 15, 1919 to June 25, 1919. This important event was Bloody Saturday. The Winnipeg General Strike was a consequence of the massive unemployment and inflation due to the success of the Russian Revolution in 1917. This created post-war labor unrest. This is what caused the strike to occur. Bloody Saturday took place in the heart of Winnipeg on June 21, 1919, nearing the end of the strike. The strikers were fighting the Northwest Mounted Police. 2 men were bumped off and 27 others were injured. The men were bumped off when the Mounted Police charged into the crowd of strikers. 94 people were pinched that day and taken away by police authorities. This event had a great impact on the strikers themselves, their families, the government, and the Mounted Police forces. Here I am standing today, and behind me in the background are the streets where the events of Bloody Saturday once occurred. We are hopeful that an event like this will not ever take place again in our future.
As you know, I was outside of Broadway talking to Charlie and his girlfriend not too long ago. At the time she was a flapper, and as you know, flappers can be quite the bee's knees. Charlie and his girlfriend Betty met in a local joint, and her audacity and beauty caught his eye. They instantly connected while doing the Charleston. Swanky, if you ask me. I asked Charlie a few questions about Betty and their relationship. What I could draw from this was that they're a very diverse couple, as Charlie was a businessman and Betty was a flapper, as you know. Unfortunately, after a quick call to Charlie not too long ago, he told us that him and Betty were no longer together and that they'd broken up 2 days after the interview. Now, we all know that flappers have somewhat died down and the women are becoming less seen. I believe that in the time of flappers, society was very different and it accepted flappers into the community. The cause of these flappers and the changed community introduced everybody to the Charleston. The rhythm was popularized in mainstream dance music in the United States by a 1923 tune called The Charleston by the composer James P. Johnson, which originated in the Broadway show Running Wild. It became one of the most popular hits of the decade. Running Wild ran from October 29, 1923 through June 28, 1924. The start of the Charleston was a good way to have fun, relieve stress, and get good exercise in. Over time, this dance will continue to have many effects on people. It has changed the way that people once looked at dance and will continue to change the way that people look at dance over the time. Many people are more outgoing and have a new interest in dance as it now opens up a style that one may dance in. This opens up many ideas and additions to this new art form that many enjoy. Lionel Blue even said, "My mother was a modern woman with a limited interest in religion. When the sun had set and the fast of the Day of Atonement ended, she shot from the synagogue to do the Charleston." It is something that almost all can do and can connect any people of any social or racial status.
In 1921, Canadian scientists Frederick Banting, Charles Best, J.J.R. McLeod, and Charles Pollitt discovered insulin. They extracted insulin from minor tissues of animal pancreases. The researchers then gave their patent rights to the University of Toronto so that people with diabetes worldwide could utilize the benefits. Since this new discovery, it will become something we can all get hipped on in the medical world. This will create positive change and impact the lives of many suffering from diabetes. Doctors and scientists prescribing, treating, and furthering their knowledge in diabetes will have much success. Medical companies producing this drug will have much competition, and in the future this will help with more discoveries. Until now, the only way to control diabetes was through a diet low in carbohydrates and high in fats and proteins. For the future of Canadians, many people suffering from diabetes will no longer be in pain and can now live longer. Canada will be recognized for all its medical advances, and Canada is continuing to become a leading contributor in advancing medicine for our future. This is Isabella reporting live from inside the University of Toronto. Thank you.
Now on to our final report. William Lyon Mackenzie King was elected into Parliament on December 5, 1921. He led the Liberals to a majority government of just one seat, but won all of Quebec, much of the Maritime provinces, and a good portion of Ontario. Since the 1911 election, the country had been governed by the Conservatives. This election had great significance to Canada, as a real change was needed to fix the outcome of the war. Also, the election was the first in which the majority of Canadian women were allowed to vote, and 5 women also ran for office. Agnes MacPhail of the Progressive Party was elected as the first woman MP in Canada. Agnes MacPhail says, "I want for myself what I want for other women, absolute equality." This shows a great change in perspective for the majority of women during this time, as they gained more rights, such as the right to vote, and were allowed to run for office. Serving as the 10th Prime Minister of Canada, Mackenzie King was mild-minded and ain't had nothing unreal to his meringue, but was still elected because the Canadians needed his ideas and thoughts. King demonstrated that Canada would decide its own foreign policy after he rejected Britain's request for the help during the Chinook Affair in 1922, because he felt that it was all wet for Canadians to support such a war, especially after World War I. Years after, in 1926, the Liberal government provided a cautious administration which reduced the federal debt. Its only initiative was the old age pension scheme. King insisted on Canadian autonomy from the United Kingdom and contributed to the Balfour Report in 1926. According to the resultant of the Balfour Report, British Dominions were defined as autonomous and equal members of the British Commonwealth of Nations. This satisfied King, who was loyal to the British Empire while also supporting the cause of sovereignty for Canada. This had great significance as Canada was now able to govern itself, and the Governor-General was only to be a figurehead, unable to interfere with Canadian politics. Overall, 1921 was a huge year for Canada's autonomy and government. And that's it for CTC's News for the Night. We hope you enjoyed this segment and be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm Christian Zecco, and good night, Canada.